up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Twisted Twenties. This is a podcast dedicated to reminding you of your God-given purpose through personal testimonies, trials, and personal revelations. I believe that each and every single one of us was created with a purpose, for a purpose, but it is up to us to align with it. I'm your host, T. Louise, and I am so excited for today's episode, you guys. I'm going to be sharing something that is was very hard for me, which is the topic of letting go of unforgiveness towards God. I think sometimes when we go through tragedies and we go through a lot of hardships in life, sometimes we hold on to this unforgiveness towards God. And I felt like it was important for me to talk about because it's something that I had been dealing with for years, and I didn't realize it until recently being in trauma therapy. So I'm really excited to be able to touch base about this topic and share my own personal testimony with letting go of the unforgiveness towards God. If you guys would love to join me on Twisted 20s as a co-host, I would love to have you. And you guys can send me a 1 to 2 minute video at submissions@twistedtwenties.org. And if you guys don't want to be a co-host, it's no hard feelings, but I would still love to hear from you. I would love to know how Twisted 20s is impacting your life. If you guys are watching me on YouTube, welcome in. I am so excited that you are joining me, and make sure you guys hit that subscribe button so that you never miss out on a Twisted 20s episode, and you will also be kept in the loop about the I Am T. Louise content that is coming soon as well. So I'm just excited about this journey that God is literally taking me on step by step. And so I'm so excited. Next week, I will be having a guest. I'm not going to say who it is yet because he has literally rescheduled on me twice. But I am hoping that we can get in and get him scheduled in next week so that we can finally talk about the me versus the world perspective that a lot of us have. And so I'm just excited with what God is doing with Twisted 20s. He has been pouring visions and new ideas and just all different type of freshness in my mind when it comes to this ministry. And so I'm just truly honored to just be a vessel to give God honor and give God glory. So with that being said, y'all, we about to go ahead and get into today's podcast episode. All right, y'all. So when he first gave me this title for this episode, I was like, God, I don't really know if I want to talk about that. And God said, I need you to talk about it because there are a lot of people who are holding unforgiveness in their heart. And it may not necessarily be towards God. It may be towards a parent, maybe towards a friend, and maybe towards somebody that don't even know that, you're angry or upset with them. And when we hold on to unforgiveness, it takes such a toll on us mentally, physically. Some of us unforgiveness will literally physically take a toll on our body with health. I think I've said this before on a previous episode, but I remember my mom used to tell me all the time, she would be like, I believe your dad is so sick. My dad was sick, y'all. Like, he had a pacemaker. He was on all different type of medications, breathing machine. Like, it was just, he was toe up from the flow up, okay? And and my mama would say, I believe that your dad is so sick because he's so angry. He holds on to so much unforgiveness. And I used to think, okay, I hear you. But I really, as I got older and I actually started to build a relationship with my dad, to hear the anger in his voice, as simply as if I didn't call him in a week, why you ain't called me? Like, he would be so angry over me not calling him for a week. Like, something so small and you're so angry about it. And so when God had revealed to me that I was angry with him in the same capacity, I felt horrible. God broke my heart. When my mom passed away, my world was shattered into pieces. I had to physically watch my mom take her last breaths. And mentally, I could not wrap my mind around why I had to lose her in that capacity. I couldn't wrap my mind around why she had to go the way that she did. And I was angry with God about that. I was angry because I didn't understand. And, you know, after a while, I felt like my feelings were not validated. Like, I felt like I didn't have the right to be angry at God. I didn't have the right to feel the way that I felt. I felt like I didn't have the right because God is God and God doesn't make mistakes. That's how I felt. And since I started trauma therapy, well, I'm finished with trauma therapy, with that portion of trauma therapy. But being in trauma therapy really helped me to understand that all of my feelings are valid. It's okay for me to feel angry. It's okay for me to feel sad. It's okay for me to feel depressed some days. It's okay for me to feel, you know, all of these emotions that I felt towards God, but I never felt like they were valid because God is God and God doesn't make mistakes. But instead of telling God, right now I hate you. God, right now I'm angry with you. God, right now I don't want anything to do with you. Instead of just being vulnerable and honest and open with him, I resented him. I resented God because he took away, or I felt like he took away the one person in my life that was always there for me. You know, my mom, she was the sacrifice type of parent, you know, whatever I needed, she was there. You know, when I remember when I was in college, I couldn't pay my rent. She literally went and took a loan out to help me pay my rent. Like, my mom was the type of parent that she wanted what was best for me because she had lived her life. She wanted what was best for me. My mom took a drastic pay cut. She took a drastic pay cut in pay to make sure that I was able to get 50% off on my college tuition. She left her good government job where she was making more than enough money to take a job at a college so that I could get the benefit of her working at a college. And so my mom was very, very, very sacrificial. And when I lost her, like I said before, my whole world was shattered into pieces. My whole life changed overnight. And I resented God for that. I hated God for that. And I'm just being so vulnerable, and I'm being honest with you guys. Like, I know I get on here and I talk and I tell you guys about God, and I'm open and honest to you about my relationship with God. But there was a point in time where I thought that I would never be where I'm at now. There was a point in my life where I practiced witchcraft. Like, I really and truly turned my back on God. I turned my back on God for probably about 2 years. It's been 4 years since my mom passed away. So I would say 2019. And then sort of around 2020 was when I started transforming and turning my life around, you know, really starting to reel myself back in towards God. But 2019, I was wilding out. Okay, I was wilding out. I'm talking about crystals and doing candle spells. Like, I was wilding out, and it is nothing but the grace of God that protected me because I had no clue what I was doing. Like, I had no clue the type of portals that I was opening. Like, I used to get up at like 5 in the morning. 5 o'clock in the morning. I used to get up at 5 a.m., y'all. Sometimes even earlier than that. And I would get up and I would meditate, listen to various sounds. And the crazy part about it is, like, I could feel presences in my apartment. Like, that's how serious it was. And like I said, it was nothing but the grace of God. It was nothing but the grace of God that kept me from being afflicted by the choices that I was making. Because real deal, I could have been affected in a way that a lot of people, I remember I was watching a girl on TikTok. Her eyes were like dark black. I'm talking about like black. And, I don't know if you're listening, if you believe in, demons and being possessed and things of that nature. But this girl was talking and she was like, she only practiced witchcraft one time and she got possessed. And I think when I saw that video, this was after I had transitioned, and transformed my life back to Christ, because I grew up in church. Why is it, let me just say this before I finish talking. Why is it that it's always the church kids, the kids that grew up in church? Why is it always us who stray the path? But back to what I was saying, because that's just a whole nother topic for another day. But when I saw that video, I thought to myself, it truly was nothing but the grace of God, because that could have been me. And I literally, when I would get up in the mornings, I could feel those presence of whatever it was, spirits, demons, whatever. But I could feel the presence of something eerie in my home. I would burn sage and I forget what that other one is called, but I was wilding out in 2019. I sure was. I was like a defiant child who couldn't get her way. I was acting out. And it was nothing but the grace of God that kept me covered, kept me protected, and shielded me from things that I have no clue about. And I've told you guys the story about how God woke me up from out of the smell of boo-boo out of my sleep. I'm not even going to tell y'all that again. But it was that night when I had finally let go of all the unforgiveness that I had in my heart towards God, all the anger, all the bitterness, everything that I had been holding on to. I had finally let that go, and it felt like weights had been lifted off of me. I remember I had a vision one day. I was literally carrying a boulder, like one of those huge rocks. I was literally carrying that on my back. And I was like, man. And it wasn't until I released the unforgiveness and the bitterness and the anger towards God that I actually realized that boulder was the symbolization of all the unforgiveness, the anger, the bitterness, everything that I had been carrying around for the past 4 years. That's what that boulder was symbolizing. And so I was in therapy for probably like a whole year. I had started therapy. I started grief therapy. Let me reiterate that. I started grief therapy. I was supposed to be in grief therapy for a whole year. I was wasting time. I didn't want to talk about what was really going on. I was talking about life struggles. I was talking about me and my brother relationship, me and babe relationship, me and my auntie Brenda. Like, I was just talking about everything but what was going on in here. What was going on in my heart. What was going on in my mind. I was talking about everything but that. And it wasn't until I started trauma therapy in March of last year, and it will be a year this coming March. It wasn't until I started trauma therapy with a God-centered therapist. I was very, 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 very picky this time with my therapist. Don't get me wrong. I loved my previous therapist. I loved her. She was like talking to a big sister, but I wasn't healing with her. I wasn't getting anywhere. I wasn't moving forward. And so I was very picky this time. And I said, God, I want to do therapy, but I want it to be a Christian-based therapist. So I got on Google. I looked it up. I chose the first two places that I found. And that's how I got with the trauma therapist that I am with now. And it's been almost a year since I started. And it has been such a transformative time for me. just from my podcast episodes, just from the obedience I'm doing now, just the transformation that I've truly experienced from one, letting go of the unforgiveness that I had towards God. And if y'all don't take anything away from this episode, I want y'all to take away from the fact that I want y'all to take this away. Sometimes God will break your heart. Sometimes there will be things in your life that you can't wrap your mind around. God is still God. No, God does not make mistakes. But I just ask that you be vulnerable and be open with God. Because don't be like me. Okay? Don't be like me. Because I was very defiant. Okay? Like I said, I was wilding out. I was doing things I shouldn't have been doing. And sometimes we take God's grace for, what's the word? Don't take my kindness for, that's the word. Thank you. Sometimes we take God's grace for granted. And when we take God's grace for granted, I do believe that we are abusing God's grace. And so when I was doing what I was doing, I had no clue. That's different. It's different when you don't know. But when you know, it still makes me think back about something my Aunt Sandra said to me. She said there's a difference between ignorant and stupid. She said ignorance is when you don't know something. She said we're all ignorant about something. She said stupidity is when you know the facts, you know what you're doing, and you still choose to do the opposite. So stupidity would have been for me. I know that what I'm doing is wrong. I know that I shouldn't be practicing witchcraft, but I'm going to keep doing it. That is stupidity. And I want you to take this away from this episode. When something tragic happens in your life, when something happens in your life that hurts, I'm talking about that type of pain that you just feel to your core, your innermost core. Talk to God about it. Trust the process and always allow God to work on you and through you. I posted a reel on YouTube. About, not allowing yourself to beat yourself up about your past mistakes. And, I had a few people on there. It's always going to be someone when you're doing God's purpose for your life. It's always going to be someone who takes a 15-second clip and turn it into something just grand and magnificent and miss the whole point. It just flies right over their head. But, it was a few people that were like, oh, no, you should beat yourself up. You should do this. You should do that. And people don't realize when you beat yourself up about stuff, you tend to stay where you're at. You tend to stay where you're at. You dig yourself deeper and deeper and deeper. Like when I was smoking weed and I would beat myself up about smoking weed, I would just keep smoking weed because I already felt bad about doing it. And because I was smoking weed and I felt bad about doing it, it made me, I'm trying to say this right because I want you to understand like what I'm saying. When I was smoking weed, I felt bad about smoking weed because I knew that God had asked me to stop smoking weed. So because I felt bad, I continued to do the very thing I felt bad about because I felt bad. Does that make sense? Like, I really hope that makes sense because when I'm saying it aloud, it sounds so complicated, but I'm doing the very same thing that I feel bad about doing because I feel bad. So no, do not beat yourself up. When you are holding on to these things toward God, I want you to be vulnerable with him because God does not condemn us. Why do we always condemn ourselves? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. And so when I saw those comments, I wanted to comment back so bad. Babe was like, no, just ignore them. I'm like, no, they need to understand. But I decided, you know what? I'm not going to comment because it's not worth my time. But I say all that to say, sometimes we get in our own way. And it makes me think back about what my therapist said, when I asked her, I was like, do you think that I'm holding on, you think I'm still mad at God because he took my mom away? Because she told me, she said, Louise, she was like, there's a barrier there. She said, but it's not a barrier that God put there. You put it there. So sometimes we are the problem. Sometimes when we feel like we're not moving forward in our walk with God, when we feel like we're not moving forward in our healing process, when we feel like we're not moving forward in our weight loss process, like I'm just naming random things, but when we get to this place, sometimes we have to look in the mirror, hint, hint, facing the woman in the mirror, okay? Sometimes we have to look in the mirror and realize that we are the problem, okay? You are the problem, ma'am. You are the problem, bro. You are the problem. You are the reason why you are not moving forward. You are the reason why you're not being healed. You are the reason why. And when I realized that, I was like, ugh. I was like, not that I'm the problem. Not I'm the one preventing myself from getting the healing that I have really been longing for. Let it go and let God. I know people say that saying all the time, let go and let God. I know we hear that all the time, but it is serious. Like, it's a real saying. Let go and let God. We hold on to so much. And God is like, why are you carrying that around? Like, I don't know if it was Jerry Flowers or Pastor Marquette at our church that said this, but he was like, so many of y'all trying to carry God weight. That's why you exhausted. That's why you tired. That's why you miserable. Because you trying to carry around weight that's not yours to carry. I'm going to use an example, and I hope Babe don't get mad at me about this. My Babe used to work for like this huge, like popular, famous entrepreneur here in Atlanta. My man was literally so stressed out with his job. He was trying to carry so much of the load on his own. When I say he was so stressed, like people who know him and they would see him, they were like, you are so frail. Like, you look so frail. And when I say holding on to stuff literally affects your body, affects your mind, affects your emotional state, affects your health, that is like the closest example that I can give you. Because my example, honey, is not I lost tons of weight, okay? More like I gained weight, okay? If y'all had saw me when my mama passed, I was, okay, small, okay? After my mama passed, I was eating my feelings, eating. And now I regret it. And now I'm trying to lose it. But I had to use him as an example because he was trying to carry around so much. I gotta do it. It's all on me. And that's why I want Pastor Marquette to come on here and talk to y'all about that. Because so many of us walk around, it's all on me. And it's really a trauma response. But listen, that's another episode for another day. That is another episode for another day. I cannot wait to talk to y'all about that with Pastor Marquette. So many of us are using our trauma responses against God. 4 things, because I'm about to wrap it up, because if not, I'm gonna get to talking about what I'm gonna be talking about with Pastor Marquette, and I'm not trying to ruin it. But anyway, 4 things you can do to let go of unforgiveness towards God. Okay, these are my own personal 4 steps. These are not 4 steps I found on Google. These are not 4 steps that these is my own personal 4 steps. Okay, these is the same 4 steps that helped me in trauma therapy. These are the same 4 steps that helped me in my personal life, my personal walk with God. Okay, step 1 is to be honest, not just with God, but with yourself. Okay, facing a woman in the mirror, being open, being honest. What's really going on? How are you really feeling? If you need to go on Google and get you one of them emotion sheets, I'm telling y'all, it works. In my therapist, we be using them little emotion sheets, and I be going through, and I'm like, man, I didn't even know this is how I felt. I didn't know I felt uncomfortable or vulnerable. My favorite word is I feel weird. My therapist is like, that is not an emotion. I'm like, it is for me, but it's not. But be honest. Be honest with God. Like, God does not expect us to be this person that just has it all together. Like, no. something Jerry said to me. He was like, he didn't say it to me. I felt like he did, but he said that God's favor does not come to the address that you pretend to be at. God's favor only comes to the address of the real you. Be honest. Be honest, okay? Step 2 is be open to hearing what God says. When you be open and vulnerable with God, allow yourself to sit for a minute and hear what God says. I promise you will feel a comfort that comes over you. That night I was sitting on that bed, on the side of my bed, crying out to God, and I told God that you broke my heart. I felt a peace come over me. I felt comfort come over me. And I was able to hear what God was saying to me. Number 3 is forgive yourself because you have been forgiven. This is so important. Why is it so hard for us to forgive ourselves, but we be so quick to forgive other people? Because we condemn ourselves. Don't listen to them idiots on my YouTube. Forgive me, Lord. I shouldn't have said that. Do not listen to those people in the comments on my YouTube video saying condemn yourselves and you should feel bad. Don't listen to them. Okay? Don't listen to them. They don't know what they're talking about. They miserable, and that is why, because they keep condemning themselves for something that God has already forgiven them for. Anyway, another topic, another day. But forgive yourself because God has already forgiven you. He does not condemn you. You keep condemning yourself, and God is like, why are you beating yourself up for something that I have already forgiven you for? And step 4 is to come naked. Be vulnerable. Be your raw, authentic, open self. God does not expect you to come to him as a finished product. So many of us think we got to get it together and then present ourselves to God. And God is like, who gonna fix you but me? You can't even fix yourself. You barely fix your bed in the morning. So be naked. Be vulnerable with God. I'm telling y'all, these steps have helped me so much when it comes to just allowing myself to truly heal from the unforgiveness that I've held on to for the past 4 years. I have a prayer for you guys, and then I'm going to wrap this episode up. My prayer is, Father, forgive me for the unforgiveness I have held on to. Heal my heart, renew my mind, and restore me. I'm going to repeat that one more time because I messed up. Father, forgive me for the unforgiveness I have held on to. Heal my heart, renew my mind, and restore me. I hope that this episode was impactful for you guys. I really and truly do. I hope that you feel God's love through this episode. I really and truly do. I hope you feel the love that I feel from him each and every single day that I wake up in the morning. The grace that he gives, and he gives to each and every single one of us when we wake up and we still have air in our lungs. But I really and truly hope that this episode was impactful. If this episode was impactful and you are watching on YouTube, please make sure you hit that subscribe button and make sure you like this video, because you are not the only one that may be holding on to unforgiveness in your heart. Even though it may not be towards God, you may be holding on to unforgiveness towards someone else. But still be vulnerable and still come naked to God. I love you guys. Peace, love, and blessings. T. Louise.